Yes, good afternoon everyone. So I'm going to start off with the unit 3 of our digital communication and coding theory. So in this unit 3 we are going to discuss from here onwards. We will be mostly interested in the topic called as information theory and coding. So in previous years and all, this was a separate subject, but here we have introduced this particular subject as a part of your digital communication. Information theory and coding was the subject name. So we are going to discuss about this particular topic in the further 3 units. So what is this information theory and coding? As we know, we have been discussing about the digital information, how they undergo modulation, and what are the different modulation techniques or modulation schemes. We have seen different modulation schemes. One is basic modulation scheme, where we consider the m value is equal to 2, that is binary, and we have m-array schemes, where the m value is greater than 2. Okay, so we have discussed the higher level blocks of a communication system, where we are talking about how to modify the digital information for it to be able to transmit over a given channel, that is AWGN, and how the performance of a transmitter and the receiver will get modified whenever can be measured by making use of probability of bit error by making an assumption that our channel is an AWGN1. So we have made the performance analysis by measuring the probability of bit error for every case of modulation scheme. So this is what we have seen so far, and we have also seen one of the very important application of our digital communication system or digital modulation techniques, which was the split spectrum, which is most commercially split spectrum is mostly used for providing a security and also to avoid the jamming of the information while it is transmitted, or it is trying to avoid the interference with the adjacent user when it is used with respect to a unique code called as PN sequence. So this is what the summarized information of the first two units. So before we could do all these process of modulation and analysis of performance and analyzing the performance and the detector by making use of different types of tools like constellation and eye diagram and all those stuff, before we could do the first step when the digital information is available at the source, the digital information which is available at source will undergo 2 more steps before it could be provided for the baseband modulation. What are those 2 steps are? Once a digital information is available at the source, it will undergo what is called as source encoding process. What is the source encoding process? This is a step where we are trying to remove, this is a step where we are going to remove the redundant information. What do you mean by this removal of redundant information? Why it is necessary to remove any information? Because I am trying to transmit the information as is, right? So why should I remove the information itself? So there is a catch over here, that is, we are trying to remove only that content or that information which is entering this particular block, which happens to give the same information as that of a already available one. That means if the information is trying to repeat itself, okay, then we are trying to reduce that redundant, which is not giving any information to us, We are trying to reduce the content of the information by calculating this redundancy. And this process is also called as compression techniques. There comes in what is called as source compression techniques. There are different compression techniques that are used in the digital communication system based on the type of data that I am trying to handle. So compression technique will be of two types. One is lossless compression. That means I will not lose any information while I am doing the compression of the information or removing the redundancy in the information. The second compression technique is the lossy compression technique. That means I am compromising on certain information of the digital information. We are compromising, we are losing certain things, but we are trying to get the actual information that is necessary for us. So these are the two different types of compression techniques or source encoding methods. So why this is important is removing the redundant information. I'll come to this part. What is meant by information first? Let us look at what is meant by information. What do you mean by information? In general sense, what do you mean by information? Yes?
Message.
Hmm?
Message.
Message. Okay. What type of message?
Valid message, ma'am.
Valid message. Okay. That's correct. Okay, fine. Valid. Then, see, basically, information is one such message which is giving you some idea about an event that is going to happen. Okay, that is when you call it as an information. Right? Otherwise, what do you call? Otherwise, what do you say? It is not necessary for you to know. It's a junk. Right? So, there is information which is meant to be processed and meant to be sent across or meant to be given on to the other side. The other one information, other type of data is that junk information or which is not required for us to know. It is something like this. So I am giving you an analogy over here. So let us consider an example that I am saying that today is a sunny day. Is it conveying any information to you? Because you already know it is a sunny day. But what if I say it is going to rain tomorrow? That is an information. That is an information to you. Now, I will say that, okay, tomorrow you are going to have lab. That is an information which you already know, which is already prefixed, and that is just an information. It is not conveying any necessary or a very strong information within it. Rather, let's say, I am going to say that tomorrow you are not going to have the class or tomorrow you are going to have the quiz. Then that is the information that carries more, that is a message which carries more information within it. So any message can be classified in terms of what is the amount of information it carries. Okay, one is more information message, more information, the other one will be less information. What is meant by that? More information means, let's suppose, I take an example of more information means, I can give you an example of something like the event which is going to occur very rarely. Where I say that tomorrow you are going to observe earthquake of so and so scale in Tumkur. That is a very, that's a statement or that is a message which consists of more information, because one thing, the earthquake is less likely to happen over here in this scenario, and there is another reason that it contributes to many other reasons that this conveys more information to me. The content is more. Then coming to less information, I say that the sun rises in the east. It is a known fact that sun rises in the east. It carries no information to me. It carries no valid information to me because I already know. Okay, so the source which is giving out the messages, the digital source which is giving out the message can be classified into the message which consisting of more information and the message that is consisting of less information. So whatever the digital source that will be giving as an output or the message output can be called as, we call the message output that is coming out of the digital source, we call it as a symbol, alphabet of a symbol, alphabet of a symbol, alphabet of symbols, or we call it as letters, or you can just call it as symbols also, no issues. Group of alphabets can be called as a symbol. So like that we can either call it as alphabets or we can call it as letters. So these letters when put together that can convey more information or they can convey less information. So I'll give you one more analogy. Let us consider, for the same information content, whether it is more or less, how do we decide this? Let us assume your digital information source, since it is a digital source, it is going to give us string of or a series of or a sequence of symbols as an output. Okay, and these symbols are going to appear at discrete time intervals. What do you mean by discrete time intervals? At time t1, at time t2, at time t3, with regular interval between t1 and t2, I am going to find the symbols that are coming out of the source, the digital source. So, having said that, the alphabets that will be coming out of a digital source, I am assuming it to be, what do you call as an alphabet? See, a symbol could be something like SIT. Okay, SIT is a symbol. Individual letters here or individual alphabets will be called as an alphabet in digital source. I hope you got this. This is the entire message or entire symbol, and this symbol will be constituted by the alphabets. Now assume that there is one such digital source where a message output is coming and it is in the form of a one alphabet is coming out of the digital information, and those happens to be our English alphabets. Okay, A, B, C, D, E, F, so on and so forth till Z. Okay, so like this I have a set of English alphabets given as an output of digital source. Okay, now the message that is actually, the source consists of all these A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, all the alphabets in its memory. So all these things will be present in its memory. Now it is putting out a message called as, give me one English word which consists of repetition or something like that. Shall we take the example of telecommunication? Yes, okay, I will take the example of telecommunication. This is my entire message. This entire message is constituted by English alphabets, and the source is going to send one alphabet at a time to the channel. Okay, now assume that, to the source encoding procedure, it's going to send here. Now, the occurrence of A does not depend on the occurrence of P. So, these occurrence of each one of these alphabets are independent of each other. So, I consider each one of these letters or alphabets are generated independent of each other. The occurrence of one does not really depend on the occurrence of the other. Okay, so I can reduce this amount. So totally how many symbols are there or how many alphabets are there? 4, 8, 12, 16, 17 alphabets are there. So the transmission of these 17 alphabets can be done blindly by sending T, E, L, E, like that C O M M U N I. I'll convert each one of these alphabets into its ASCII equivalent, 7-bit ASCII equivalent, which is commonly used, and I'm going to transmit it over the channel. So totally 7 into 17 bits is what I'm going to transmit. Yes or no? Correct? Agree with me? Please be with me and try to respond to my questions. Understood till here? Guys, respond.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a delay in the network? Pallavi?
No, ma'am.
No, there is no delay. Okay, we shall continue. So there are 17 alphabets. So assume that each one of these alphabets are represented by their ASCII equivalent. To convert the letters into their binary equivalent values, so I converted, and then 7 into 17 is the total number of bits that are transmitted to the will be sent out of your source code for further modulation and all those stuff. So you can see 7 into 17 is not a very small number. It is almost equal to 119 bits. But if you see here, if you observe this word called as telecommunication, you can see more than, the alphabets are repeated more than once. That means I have T once, I have T twice, E coming in twice, then M coming in twice. Like that, I have certain alphabets are repeating themselves in the entire sentence. So what we will do is, in order not to give the same T with the 7 bits, instead what we can do is, we can go with a coding which tells or which helps me in reducing this total length of the bits that are transmitted. How to reduce that? We are going to calculate how many repetitions of the same alphabet is happening in the entire message. That means T is appearing 2 times, E is appearing 2 times, L is appearing 1 time, C is appearing twice again, O is appearing twice again, M is appearing twice, U is appearing once, N is twice, I is twice, then A is 1 time. Done? We are done with almost all the alphabets which are available in this entire word or a message. So now what we are going to do, we are going to keep the frequency of the occurrence of an alphabet in mind, and then we are going to reduce the amount of information that we are going to send across the channel. So this is the highlight of our source encoding, where the amount of information that I am trying to transmit, can be reduced for the better usage of the bandwidth that is given to me, and also I can improve the information content in the message that is sent. What is meant by that? If you see here, the alphabets T, E, C, O, M, N, I, all these alphabets are appearing 2 times when compared to that of L, U and A. So, whichever the alphabets, let's suppose in this, if I don't put L, will it convey any information? T communication, what does that mean? It does not convey anything. Assume that there is no U. Telecommunication, what is that? Since I know it is an English word, I am able to put a U or whatever that is appropriate or sounds right. I am going to put it. That is the human way of rectifying the error. But the machine will not know what word it is until and unless it gets a proper information. What if I don't put A here? So there is a possibility of combinations of this 26 alphabets will come into picture when it is trying to reconstruct the same message. So what does that mean? Whenever I am trying to reconstruct the same information on my receiver, I should know which are all the key alphabets in the information that is available to me. That is a checkpoint. So even if I miss some T or some N, it is okay, but I should not miss out the alphabets or the information which are least probable. That is why I gave you an example of that earthquake, and then I gave you an example of sunrise. So whenever I say there is an earthquake that is going to occur tomorrow, the information is less probable, therefore it conveys more information to you. Yes or no? You are least expecting that to happen, therefore it gives you more information. What if I say tomorrow sun is going to rise in the east? It is quite obvious. I will know for sure that sun rises in the east. So that does not give you any information, but it is also a message. But it is not giving you any valid information because it is already known. So here, in the similar way, if I have multiple repetition of the same alphabets that coming into the message, then that means that particular alphabet is rendering less information when compared to that of an alphabet which is least occurring. Is this fine? Did you get this? Did you get this concept? Please say yes or no. Yes? So this is how we are going to make use of this kind of an analogy, or we are going to use some mathematical analysis on the informations which are generated by a discrete source, and we will try to incorporate what is called as source encoding by removing the redundancy in the information. So what is meant by redundancy? It's a calculated redundancy. I mean, we are going to ensure that while measuring the redundancy, that does not mean we are neglecting the message. Rather, we are going to see how many repetitions are happening, and we are going to assign less number of bits for such repetitions. In that case, whenever I do the bits assignment, you will have a different techniques to do that procedure, where the bits are assigned with the binary ones and zeros in order to represent. So that total number of bits in that case would be lesser than 119 bits. So that is how we are going to achieve the source encoding. So depending on whether I am going to lose certain information or I am going to retain the message as is, depending on that we have two types of source encoding. One is lossy techniques and the other one is lossless technique. Okay, so why do we have to do all this? Can you tell me? I gave you the answer already. Why do we have to do this?
Ma'am, to use the better bandwidth and to not to miss out the symbol, to improve the information.
Correct. One thing is the main purpose of doing this is to reduce the bandwidth occupancy of the message information. That is one of the major reason, and also how much should be the data rate. This puts out the information in certain order. Okay, a certain bit stream will be coming out, and we will know at what rate my source will be generating these bits. The source encoding will be generating the bits, and I can, by measuring that number of bits that are generated in a source encoding, I can decide what should be the rate at which I am going to transmit it over the channel so as to achieve a reliable communication. So what should be this R? Such that what can be this maximum R with which I can transmit the information into the modulator continuously, so that I can achieve a reliable communication based on Shannon's Hartley capacity theorem. So based on this, I am going to decide what should be the rate at which I need to transmit the information such that I will be able to achieve the reliable communication over the channel. So this is one, bandwidth reduction is one, and also I need to know what is the rate at which I am going to transmit the information. So this is also there. These are the main reasons, and also to increase the information content rather than sending the information blindly. These are the three main reasons to study about the source, the digital source right at the beginning itself. Even before we could blindly send all the information into the modulator to modulate. So this is one thing I wanted to give as an introduction. So we will take one typical example and we shall solve one simple problem to know what is meant by information content. Yes?
Ma'am, this when we code the alphabet which is repeating, it will be having the specific memory location to it, right, ma'am?
Yes, exactly.
So
it will have some lookup table sort of a thing.
yeah, but when we are coding as per the alphabets which is repeating twice or thrice, then that location will miss out, right, ma'am? Then the information will lose.
No, it's not like that. See, when we discuss about source encoding techniques, you will be able to understand that there are different methods to do this. So we have Huffman coding, we have adaptive Huffman coding, we have run length coding, all these techniques, lossless techniques that we will be using in source encoding. So what basically happens is, depending on when the alphabet is going to appear, let's suppose I assign this as bit 1. Okay, depending on the probability of its occurrence, we are going to assign the bits. And I'm actually talking about something like this. You see here. I will take one simple example, something like 3. How many alphabets are there? There are 4 alphabets, right? I'm going to calculate the probability of occurrence of each one of these alphabets. So the T appears with what probability? 1 in 4. And what is the probability of R? 1 in 4. What is the probability of letter E? It is 2 in 4, which is equal to half. So while coding, what I do, I will decide what should be the length of the code that needs to be assigned for each one of these alphabets. How to calculate the minimum length or the information length that is necessary to code each one of the alphabets. We will calculate what is called as average length of the code. So to calculate that, I will come to that topic will appear. So now, depending on the probability of their occurrence, we are going to assign the length of the code. So for this, the probability of occurrence of E is larger when compared to that of probability of occurrence of T and R. So these two will have a common length. Let's suppose it is around 3 bits, and this will carry only 2 bits. So based on the probability of their occurrence, we are going to assign the bits, and as and when the alphabets will appear, we can do it in a dynamic manner. As and when the alphabets will appear, we can assign the codes and we can construct the tree sort of a thing, the coding tree, and that will be a technique called as adaptive Huffman coding. So we will do that. I mean, when we discuss about the source encoding techniques, we will do that procedure. Let us not worry about that now. Okay. I hope you understood what is meant by information of a message. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I am considering a very typical source. I am going to start off with a concept called as information content of a digital source, or information content of an alphabet. What is this information content? So I am assuming a digital source. Assume there is a discrete source. What do you mean by discrete source? It is giving out a discrete alphabet at discrete time intervals. So there is a discrete source given to me. It is going to generate, assume that it is going to generate q alphabets or q possible messages. There are q possible messages, okay, which I call them as M1, M2, so on up to mq are the possible messages that are coming out of a discrete source, and all these messages m1, m2, so on up to mq will occur at a probability of p1, p2, so on up to pq. Each message will have the probability of appearing with probability p1, p2, pq. So we can measure the information contained in kth message, information content or amount of information in kth message can be measured is kth message is indicated or represented as something like this. I is the representation of information of message k. So it is I of m of k. Information of message m of k is inversely proportional to the probability p suffix k. That means the information content of a message signal is always inversely proportional to the probability of its occurrence. If it is a least probable information, then it will have, if it's a least probable message, then it will convey or it will have more information. If it is most probable information, then it will have less information within it. So having said that, if I consider the message of m of k, the information contained in the message m of k, if it is larger than the information contained in the message j, this is possible if, this will occur if the probability of k is lesser than the probability of j. This is the first thing that you need to know with respect to information. The second one is I of the information of message m of k approaches 0, it will approach 0 as the probability pk approaches 1. Okay, what does this mean? If I say tomorrow you will see the sun, what does it mean? It is not conveying any information. Tomorrow in the daylight you will definitely see the sun, right? So it's a the event which is occurring absolutely with a probability equal to 1, it is definitely going to happen. So therefore pk, if it tends to equal to 1, then the information will always be tending to 0. And remember, the information is always a non-negative number. The information is always a non-negative number, but it can take a value equal to 0 but not lesser than 0. There is no concept of such that where the information is negative. There is no such concept. It's an absurd thing. So information is always measured in terms of a positive number. It could also be equal to 0. The third thing that we need to know with respect to information is I of m of k will always be greater than or equal to 0 when the probability pk is between the range 0 and 1. Probability cannot be negative, therefore information is also not negative value, because we are saying that information content is inversely proportional to the probability of the occurrence of the message. Therefore, they are non-negative numbers. I hope it is understood so far. Do you have any doubts? Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So now we will see what is the relation between this information I of imk and the probability of the message mk. So I said it is just inversely proportional, but it is actually related. We can show that there is no derivation for this, but we need to know that imk Is this visible? Is this visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. IMK is logarithmically related to 1 over pk. Is logarithmically related to 1 over pk. So, the information the unit of this particular information is dependent on the base that you are trying to use over here for the logarithm. Okay, depending on the base, the logarithmic base that you are going to use, based on that we have units defined for the information. If I am going to use log to base e, then if it's a natural logarithm, then I of m of k is measured in nats, NAT. It is measured in nats. If I consider log to base 10, if I am going to take the base of logarithmic as 10, then information of the message is measured in decit. Okay, it is measured in terms of decit. Okay, then the third possibility is I can measure this particular information in terms of what is called as the logarithmic log to base 2. In that case, information is measured in terms of what are called as digits or bits. Digits or bits. This is a common usage of bits, because we already know in the information, if it is in binary with base 2, then we are very sure that it is represented as bits, correct? So the possibility of the two informations are ones and zeros, so therefore we measure it in terms of bits. So based on the same, based on the information calculation, we will solve one problem and then we can wind off for today. I guess you have understood till here. No doubts? Yes or no? Please tell me.
No, ma'am.
Okay. So this decit, or it can also be called as heartlake. It can also be measured in terms of heartlake. There is another unit. Decit or heartlake. Okay, we will solve one problem here. Take down the problem. Can I dictate? Shall I dictate the problem?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay, take down. A source puts out one of the 5 possible messages. One of the 5 possible messages during each message interval. A source puts out one of the 5 possible messages during each message interval. During each message interval, the probability of these messages are P1, P suffix 1 is equal to half, P suffix 2 is equal to 1 by 4, P suffix 3 is equal to 1 by 8, P suffix 4 is equal to 1 by 16, P suffix 5 is equal to 1 by 16. Full stop. Find the information content of these messages. Find the information content of these messages in terms of bits. Find the information content of these messages in bits. Okay, so please observe here. Whenever I calculate a source, whenever I see a source, it is something like a larger set. Discrete source is a large set. Then each alphabets will happen to be the independent events like this. Each independent will have its own probability of occurrence. P3, P4, P5. Okay. So each messages will have its own probability of occurrence. When I take the probability of the entire source, which is a sum of all possible probabilities of the messages, should always be equal to 1. Please remember that. That is when we call one such source as an ideal source, otherwise it's not an ideal source. Okay? Whenever we consider a source of alphabets or source of message, the probability of individual messages should add up to value equal to 1. Please remember this. The probability of all the messages that are put out from a digital source or a discrete source will always be equal to 1. Check it out. Half plus 1/4 is 3 by 4. 3 by 4 plus 1 by 8 is how much? Just check it out. So this gives you 1 by 8. 1 by 16 plus 1 by 16 is 1 by 8. 1 by 8 plus 1 by 8 is 1 by 4. 1 by 4 plus 1 by 4 is 1 by 2. 1 by 2 plus 1 by 2 is equal to 1. So thus all the probabilities will sum up to value equal to 1. Therefore this is a ideal source and it's a valid source. If this is not equal to 1, then it is not a valid source at all. You cannot use such a source. It will be a biased source. So you cannot use that. So it should always be a ideal source where all the probabilities of the message signals are, when they are added together, it amounts to a value equal to 1. Now we shall measure the information content of each of these messages with the probability. What is that? The equation that we have? The information content in the message, I call it as I of P1, which is equal to log to base 2. Since we need to measure in terms of bits, it is log to base 2 of 1 over P1. I will write in general, this is IPI, and here also I write it as PI. In general, I will write it as minus of log to base 2 of PI. Okay, so I am writing it like this. So it's for my convenience. So I will calculate the information with message 1, which is given by negative log to base 2 of half, that is P1, which is equal to minus log to base 2 of half. IP2, I am going to write it directly over here, minus log to base 2 of 1 by 4. IP3 is equal to minus log to base 2 of 1 by 8. Next, IP4 is equal to minus log to base 2 of 1 by 16. IP5 is equal to minus log to base 2 of 1 by 16. Now calculate what is the value that you are getting in each case. What is the value for this? Since 2 is in the denominator, the negative will nullify anyways, because log 1 to base 2 is again 0, log 2 to base 2 is equal to 1, so minus n to minus is plus, so this is 1 bit. Coming to this case, 4 you can take it to the numerator and minus into minus will become plus, so log 4 to base 2 is equal to 2, so it is 2 bits. Here it will be 3 bits. Here, in case of 16, both will take a value equal to 4 bits. Both IP4 and IP5 is equal to 4 bits. So what is this problem will state is the messages which are least probable. You can see here it is 1 by 16 and 1 by 16. The messages which are least probable and they are least occurring will have larger information. That means we need to at least assign 4 bits in order to represent P4 and P5, whereas the most probable information, that is P1, can be assigned with only 1 bit. So this is how I can code my information such that with a variable length I can code my message information such that I can reduce the total number of bits that are involved in the transmission of information, thereby reducing the required bandwidth in the channel. Is this clear? Easy enough?
Yes, ma'am.
Problem is easy enough? Okay. So this is about the information content of one message. Then we need to discuss about average information content. So the concept of this is going to be a part of your lab tomorrow. So I am going to discuss the theory as well. We are going to discuss the lab part of the same thing. So from tomorrow onwards I am going to start off with part B of your lab, which is the Scilab portion. So tomorrow I'll give the instructions regarding the Scilab. So tomorrow afternoon entirely everyone, you are supposed to join to the session and I'll give you the instructions with respect to the Scilab. Okay. So we will meet again for tomorrow. And then we will discuss the lab part, and also we will discuss about the average information content, which is the entropy of the system.